Well, I figured this was as good a time as any to start with some video. Basically, this is just a little bit of documentation of my project here. This is a 1981 Mercedes-Benz 240D. I've actually had this, it's mid-April now. I've had this car since January. A little quick walk around here. Not really easy to see this side, just because of the size of the garage, but you get the idea. Now, all in all, this car is actually in very good shape. It has 316,000 miles on it, give or take a few. I actually got the car with a broken odometer, but I got a pretty good deal on the car. I don't think it has too many more miles than that. The engine supposedly was replaced at a Mercedes dealership a few years ago. But I believe it was a used engine, not a freshly rebuilt one at the time, but it runs well. Also, around the same time, a new transmission at that same dealership. Was dealership maintained for a long time, but not in the last couple of years, where it kind of fell out of use by the former owner, and ended up she had this, I'm not going to call him shady, but this mechanic across town who wasn't all that good. And I say he wasn't all that good because the story goes like this. When I went to look at the car was sitting at his shop. I went over there and I test drove it. It wouldn't go faster than 15 miles per hour. The subject of that engine came up, and he says, well, maybe the dealership put in a bum engine. And this guy actually had other Mercedes there at the shop he was working at. He was an older guy. He should have known what he was talking about. I was pretty sure right away that the car just needed fuel filters and a valve adjustment, and I was right. So, changed out the filters, adjusted the valves, and it is actually running pretty well now. And I was getting pretty close to putting it on the road. Before I get to that, though, a few more positives. As you can see, the paint is pretty good. It was actually redone a few years ago. And what else? I did a lot of other little work. I put in a new tape deck. It's actually 10 years old, but it was new old stock, still in the original box. Got it off of eBay, pretty cheap. And I've done a lot of interior work. Actually, most of the interior is out of the car right now, with the exception of the front passenger seat. That is, I took that out, restuffed the bottom a bit. The upholstery was in good shape, so I put that back in. The rear seat is out. I had to do a little stuffing there, and I had to reseat the vinyl on the frame, but that's in good shape now. It's sitting in the house, kind of waiting to go back in the car. Over here is the driver's seat. This is the sort of thing I've been dealing with. Overall, there's no rips or cuts in the upholstery, at least nothing too big to speak of, and it's not worn through, but you can see here at some time it was taken off in the past to be restuffed, and it wasn't reseated quite right at all. It looks like crap, so more or less I have to take this seat apart, reset the vinyl on the frame the way it should be, and then put it back together. Won't take too long. So overall, as I said, I was getting ready to put this car on the road when I noticed some water on the inside. Well, I took it out, did a little investigating, and I realized the car has a bad spot on the floor. So, this past week or so, I've been working at it. Not the best lighting here to see this, but I finally got the seat out. The bolts were rusted in. That took a long time, and then finally took the carpeting out, and then I took the sound deadening insulation off the floor because I really had to get to the metal to see what kind of shape it was in. Overall, as you can see, the floor there is in pretty good shape. Over on this side, the seat mounting bracket is rusty. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see that at all in this light. In fact, let me just try the night vision here, see if that helps. Oh wow, does that help? So, yeah. But I checked it out, that's really just surface rust. I can clean that up a bit, repaint it, that'll be fine. I do have to get a new, I think it's called a nut plate. At least that's what the online vendor who sells them is calling it. Because it's stripped out here. It's more or less a plate I can put there so I can bolt the seat down. It has threads in it. So, I'm going to turn this night vision off again for a second, and I'll show you why. That side of the floor is fine. As you can see, the metal is perfectly solid. But as you get closer to the driver's side door here, and this is what I just learned, there is actually a hole in the floor here. Now, in some respects it's better than I thought, in others it's worse. I mean, I had no idea how widespread the rust was before I got everything out. That was tonight. I took everything up and I vacuumed, and probably vacuumed for a good 10 minutes to get the rust chips out. In fact, I can see through the viewfinder here, this really is making it look worse than it is. Across it's about a ½ inch. On both sides of it, it really does seem to be solid metal. Now, the seat mounting bracket on this side here, and I'm going to turn the night vision back on for a second. The bracket itself is in pretty good shape, needs to be cleaned up, but underneath it it's kind of weak. Now, I didn't notice anything with the seat because the bracket itself also is welded onto the side here. So, more or less, I have to clean up and re-strengthen this whole seam on the side of the car here. And once again, I think, especially with the night vision on, it looks a lot worse than it is. Most of what you're seeing, if you're seeing metal, it's actually pretty solid. Just more or less dirty. So, that's my cleanup job. Now, some people would suggest that I junk the car or sell the car. With all the new parts in this car, I really don't think it's worth it to do that, even though I don't have that much invested in the car. Some would tell me to weld this up, which is a great idea, but I don't know anything about welding. They say there's always a first time for everything, but you know, that also requires investment in the equipment, and I don't have that kind of spare money right now. I mean, really, I'd probably have to spend a few $100s on it, and it really isn't the way I want to do it. Although that probably would be the best repair, I don't argue that. Cutting out all the bad metal, putting in fresh metal. What I am going to do, though, and I'm just going to pause this for a second. I actually bought this about a week or two ago. This is a rivet gun. As useful as it is, it's actually not an expensive tool. It's less than $20, made by Arrow. They are the same folks that make my staple gun, which I like. So, rivet gun. Metal shears, and underneath here some, I think it's 22 gauge sheet steel. It's actually got a good amount of strength to it. And in there some primer, paint, and various other things, probably some rivets, and don't know what else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean this as, in the car here, I'm going to clean this as close to bare metal as I can. And once that's done, I'm actually going to coat it with Miracle Paint, which is a product I started using about a year ago. Although I may actually use Eastwood's Rust Encapsulating Paint. I still have a full can of that left, and I was pretty satisfied with that one last time I used it. I'm going to clean the metal up, coat it with that stuff, and then drill and rivet in some patches, then cover those extensively with primer, paint, and undercoating. Once that's all done, I'll do my best to re-insulate the floor for some sound deadening there. I have some stuff I think that'll work pretty well. and then reinstall the interior and drive it. The only other thing I think that I might need to do is I might need to adjust the steering gearbox. There is an adjustment on it. It's just after 300,000 miles, the car, even at low speeds, the steering is, there's a little bit of slop in there. It's certainly not the end of the world. I mean, I've driven cars like that before, but yeah, I'd rather it didn't feel that way. And of course, to be on the safe side, I'm gonna, put the car up in ramps or jack stands, and also check out the rest of the front end, steering damper, tie rods, all that sort of thing, just to make sure it's safe. But other than that, though, I'm satisfied with the project and the way it's progressing. I've been working on it evenings and weekends, mostly weekends, except for recently, since January. Picked it up January 2. And the last couple of weeks after work, since I've finally had the weather for it here in the New England winter, I've been working out in the garage after I got home from work for an hour or two, and doing that, a couple of times a week really has gotten me a lot further along with the project. So, my goal was originally to have this car on the road by February, and now it's looking more like June, but there haven't been too many surprises with this, and I'm kind of happy with it. So we'll see how it goes, and if it all comes together really nice, I'm probably going to keep it. If not, I'll drive it for a little while, enjoy it, and resell. That's all.